Hello and welcome to another episode of the Modern Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Billy Tarasio, joined today by modern law attorney Rachael Collier. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Billy. Good to be here.
So happy to have you here. Rachel, let's get into your background. Where are you from and what made you go to law school?
Sure. I'm originally from Minnesota, but when I turned 18, I left there right away. It's very cold, and that is why I'm here. Um, I did a undergrad in business management in Colorado, actually. I like to move around, but then I was working in accounting, and I was kind of at the top of where I could be at that business really quickly, and numbers don't change very much, and I was bored super quick. And I took the LSAT for fun. I didn't even study. I just went, took it, and did well enough. And some schools started reaching out to me, and then I went to law school. So I wish I had a good story. Like it was always my dream ever since I was a little girl, but it kind of fell into my lap, and I went with it.
Okay, so the LSAT is not an easy test at all. I had to take it twice and take a class in between because the first time I winged it like you did, I did not get a good enough score. What was your score?
Oh, I just looked at this. Oh, what's it out of?
180.
It was average. It wasn't amazing, but, and I don't recall off the top of my head. We'll have to circle back to that because it wasn't important to me at the time. I was like, oh, I
Right,
scored what I scored.
right.
So,
But
um,
it's a hard test. Like most people don't wing it and do well. So, I mean, that says a lot. Okay. The other thing you mentioned is Minnesota. And of course, we have this VP candidate, Tim Walz from Minnesota. And one of the things I keep seeing is him being called Tampon Tim and that there were tampons in boys' bathrooms. Is that real?
I left when I was 18. I never looked back, but I have heard that so many times that if it is not real, the marketer that did that is amazing.
Okay. So we're not sure. We're still not sure if tampons were in boys' bathrooms.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Really?
It wouldn't. It wouldn't. I don't know if you have looked at Minnesota's a very interesting state because when I think Minnesota, I kind of think out in the woods and hunting and lakes. But the last time that there was a presidential assassination attempt, they were the only state to be blue. So it's a very interesting state.
Right. Yeah. I did know it was a very blue state,
Yeah.
but tampons in boys' bathrooms does seem up very, very, I don't even know the word. I don't know the word, but it's very outside the mainstream expectations. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
Okay, so you left, haven't gone back. You ended up in Arizona, very different culturally than Minnesota. Do you like it here?
I do. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a
Yeah,
good culture fit.
I do. I think it's kind of when I was East Coast, when I was in Massachusetts, I liked the privacy, and that sounds crazy, but being there were so many dense populated areas, you would be on the street and no one cared what you were doing. Um, but it was a lot of traffic and I didn't like that. Arizona, I think, is that perfect mix of I still feel like I have the privacy and the opportunity to do what I want to do and the weather, and there's an airport like 15 minutes from me. The one thing I miss is lakes and oceans, but then there's the airport and you leave.
The airport is the solution to our lack of water and oppressive heat. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Did you do any fun trips this summer?
Not this summer. I went to Hawaii right before summer started and I had never been there and I already want to go back. I
Mhm.
love the Mediterranean Sea, and then Hawaii was like 6 hours. It was there. I snorkeled for the entire trip and hiked, and I would recommend Hawaii. But that was the only
Mhm.
bigger trip that I did this summer.
Oh, only one, Hawaii.
I
That's
know.
that sounds lovely. Absolutely lovely. Okay, so how long have you been practicing family law?
Well, short answer, about 3 years. Long answer, I practiced in Massachusetts when I was in law school. So you kind of get introduced to it there. You decide if you love or you hate it. And then I was in Colorado working for a firm for a while, waiting for my bar results. And then, as you know, it's a lovely transfer process. So then you wait for 6 more months and wait for your license to transfer. So in Arizona, I think May 2023 would have been actually when my license became effective in Arizona.
But at that point, you had already been practicing for what, 3 years probably?
I had been into it for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know it's a tough answer, but since 2021, 2022, I've been in the family court world.
Mm-hmm. And what is it about family law that you liked?
I think it is the human element of it. Family law, I mean, there's emotions and money. Absolutely. You know, if you're arguing over a business, people love to get emotional about money. But when you're talking about divorce or your kids that you've had with you every single day, being able to talk and connect with someone and zoom out and look at this bigger picture of how can we get this entire family to a good place in the future. Um, and I think that's one of the things that I'm really good at and giving advice on that. So I liked the human element of it, and I thought it was a great place to start in looking at, negotiations, contracts. You get a lot of litigation really quick in family law. So I thought it was a really great place to start and get a very wide range of experience.
Now, I know what you mean when you say you get a lot of litigation very quickly in family law, but our listeners may not know what that means. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So in family law, say you're doing an order of protection hearing. If someone requests a hearing on that, you're getting a hearing within 10 days. So, I mean, that was actually one of my first cases in Arizona was something along those lines. So I got my license and was in a hearing really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with temporary orders. If you're going to do temporary orders because you need to pay community bills and your house is going to foreclose if, husband doesn't cough up the money or whatever it is, you're going to get a hearing in 30 days, hopefully. Not all the time, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's emergency temporary orders, you're going to get a hearing within a couple weeks. And then, the goal of the court is to get people divorced and on their way. Does that always happen? No. But, when we have a full caseload and we have temporary orders, orders of protection, those kinds of things, I mean, you can go in the morning from an order of protection hearing to the afternoon to a temporary orders hearing. So your calendar is pretty full with court hearings.
Yeah, it's a lot of court time, even though most cases settle. And if you're
Mhm.
looking at like a civil litigation case or, other types of litigation that are not family law, they don't usually have evidentiary hearings because there are not usually immediate issues that have to be resolved. And I think this is one of the hardest parts of our job is keeping in mind what you said. How do we get this family in a place where it can function well long term when there's all these immediate needs that often can't be resolved without immediate litigation? Because whenever we go to court and whenever we litigate, honestly, it hurts a family. It hurts a family's ability to make decisions together in the future. It's not good.
Absolutely. And I am very upfront with my clients about, especially if we're temporary orders, and it's a family that is middle class or, maybe hovering on that poverty line. Do you want to spend the money to go to temporary orders, or do you guys want to come together as a family, as co-parents, as ex-partners, and figure out how do we make these bills without going into foreclosure so that our credit doesn't suffer, so that we can get apartments or buy another house or do something like that? Um, I think litigation is tough. And usually I tell my clients if everyone's a little upset, that's a good result. Because there's a lot of things in family court and not winning on all of them is okay. And it's probably going to happen. You're not going to get everything that you ask for.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to make this decision that you're going to be okay with? Or do you want a judge to make a decision that maybe no one is okay with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. but it's not always possible to avoid. What are the cases where you find you can get people to an agreement versus those where we have to litigate?
I think cases in which we can get to an agreement is when you have an opposing party or counsel that is willing to listen and have a conversation. Opposing counsels can be really hurtful in family law. It's kind of this tumultuous, I was going to say cult, that's not the right word, but it's a tumultuous area of law sometimes. And a lot of lawyers get emotionally invested in their clients because they hear these stories. So if you have someone on the other side that's willing to have a conversation, because sometimes you get people that just don't even respond too. If they're willing to have a conversation and look at the bigger picture, I think, yeah, we can get there and we can say, hey, I think these are all issues, but why not save the money? Let's prepare for final trial. If we're not going to be able to agree, we can agree to disagree. Perfectly fine with me. But let's save the money for final trial and figure it out until then. Um, Times when I know that it's just, yeah, let's just file temporary orders is if it's non-responsive, or I call it different planets. If we are in different solar systems, I don't want to waste the client's money on conversations. So let's just file.
Right. What you just said is something that's really important that many people probably don't understand. Who your ex chooses for a lawyer is going to have a very large impact on how your case proceeds.
Yeah, much bigger. I wish that weren't the case, but it is. And, you know, staying within my ethical obligations as an attorney to be kind to other people of the profession. Um, Sometimes you see names on the other side, they enter that notice of appearance, and you're like, oh no, we know how this is gonna go. And you see legal fees jump from average to through the roof. Or you know that the day before the hearing you're going to get a bunch of disclosures or whatever it may be. Or you feel as though sometimes I ask my clients, do you think that that position came from your ex, or do you think that it came from opposing counsel? And that's a really interesting question to ask, because you have a client that is talking to you and you're like, they're a great co-parent. I just want 50-50. Let's move forward with this. And then you get the response and it says, supervised visitation. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? And sometimes it really is they talk with an attorney and their core position changes. And I wish it weren't that way, but sometimes it is.
That's 100% true. And so many people, the public, has disdain for the industry of family law, who they believe, not entirely wrongly, has an interest, a financial interest in making your life worse because there is profit in conflict. Now, that is something that we at Modern Law are wholly adverse to. But can you address that concern of the public's?
I think it's a valid concern. And I think that what the public should know is that you can fire your attorney. You can hire me tomorrow and fire me the next day. That's not, and sometimes it happens. There are people that just aren't good fits. Like you're getting a divorce for a reason. You guys didn't work out as partners. You might not work out as an attorney. It's the same thing. There's good doctors, good doctors, bad lawyers, or bad lawyers, whatever. But I think that, being able and being open and honest with your attorney, if you see something in a motion or a pleading that you don't like, you don't agree with, say something. Um, the attorney is there to guide you and to tell you what the law is and give you advice. At the end of the day, it's still your family, your case. So if you feel strongly about a position, let your lawyer know that and, ride with that. Um, and also, if you are getting things from the other side that is causing your legal fees to rack up, or, you're getting off track, I've been somewhat successful by writing opposing counsel a message and saying, hey, um, I'm getting a little concerned about the legal fees in this case, and I think it is a product of our communication, and I don't think it's effective. And I think that we need to revisit this. And things shape up quickly after that sometimes. When I say I'm genuinely concerned that this isn't a product of the parties, I think this is a product of us. And saying us, do I think that I'm a part of the problem? Maybe not.
You
But
don't mean us. You mean you. You
yeah.
mean you.
Yeah.
I love that you do that.
Yeah, and it's been effective because then they kind of start to think, oh, is this going to turn into a bar complaint? Is this going to turn into this is the reputation that I have in the legal community? And I don't want to do it in a way that's going to hurt my relationship with opposing counsel. I just want to let them know this isn't okay. What's happening here, not okay.
Well, finding polite ways to check somebody's behavior is a art and a talent and one that you possess. But it also communicates your confidence because you are a newer attorney. And the fact that you would have the confidence to call out, and usually these are very experienced attorneys who are incredibly high conflict, is a real testament to your confidence.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Um, and I get that a lot, you know. I would say until I've been in front of a judge a couple times or been in front of a clerk a couple times, the every time I show up, they say, "Oh, do you have counsel with you today?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes, I do. That is me." So, and it doesn't bother me because there's going to be a day where I'm going to show up and I'm going to be the older lawyer. So it doesn't bother me at all. And I think that as the younger attorney, you kind of pay better attention because you do have a lot to learn still. And I'm still kind of that sponge. And I show up and I see some of these lawyers that are really burnt out because it happens.
Yeah.
So, um, I think that we all have the ability to litigate and advocate for our clients equally. Experience is amazing, but if you're not putting that to use, yeah, it doesn't really bother me that much. I kind of like it in a weird way right now because I'm like I'm also on the other side and I am young. So that means that I'm capable and it just doesn't bother me.
I love that. You've been doing a lot of prenuptial agreements and postnuptial agreements lately. Do you think these types of agreements are on the rise?
I hope so. I do. I think I love a prenup. I love a postnup. I think that when I'm looking at a marriage, we're hovering almost at 50% of people that are getting divorced when they get married. So I'm not trying to say I don't believe in love or anything like that. Get married if you want to get married, absolutely. But it's so much easier to come to these agreements when we're in that honeymoon stage and when we're thinking, hopefully, logically. And it's really big, I think, for business owners and those kinds of things to think about prenup or postnup because I think people get married for love or they're wrapped up in the emotion and they don't realize sometimes the consequences. That's not nice. Consequences of getting married, but you could lose a lot of money in that separation. If you started like a tech startup and then you get married and it booms and you get divorced in a year, you could lose a lot of money from that. And I think, and that's kind of the human element that I'm talking about as well, because a lot of people are scared to have that post or prenup conversation. They don't want to make their partner angry or think that, oh, we are going to get divorced. But it's a reality. Facts are just facts. It happens. And having that conversation is also a good indicator of whether or not you should get married, I personally think. Because if you can't have a rational conversation with your soon to be husband or wife, talking about, hey, what would happen in the event that we do separate? Because it happens. I think it's a good indicator of should we get married at all? But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that is very, very true. So, what is it about the couples that you're working with on these prenups or postnups that you think makes them want to, be at that place, both in their relationship and their life, where they would want to explore these types of official agreements?
Oftentimes, it's if it's a second marriage. That's where I'm seeing them the most, is because
Mhm.
they've been through divorce before and they thought that was terrible. I loved being married. I hated getting divorced. And I
Right.
think that's absolutely true because it's so easy to get married and can be incredibly difficult to get divorced.
Yeah.
So oftentimes when people are coming to me knowing that they want that, it's a second marriage if there's significant assets or businesses involved. And I think those ones are exceptionally important and they're more fun for me because I kind of get to dive in. But I also think that people that are maybe middle class or below, pre or post-nuptial agreements are just as important for them because that's gonna, maybe it'll cost you $1,000. Maybe it'll cost you $2,000. But that is so much less expensive than you guys litigating over your entire life savings and potentially draining it. So I
Yeah.
think that it's to the general public, and maybe I have a misconception about it, but to the general public, it seems like, oh, postnups are only for celebrities. But I think postnups are absolutely for everybody because it's kind of like insurance to me.
Yeah. And it may not be able to solve every issue, but if you don't have to fight about our credit cards, if you decide, and this is how you're managing this within your marriage, where I'm spending money on my credit cards and paying it off with my salary, and you're doing this with yours, you've already established what you think is fair. But what you think is fair in your marriage is not what the law thinks is fair and is not good won't is not how the judge will divide those debts when you get divorced. It's better, in my opinion, for you all to write down what it is you believe is fair that you're doing. And then those are not issues to litigate. Maybe you're still litigating child support. Maybe you're still litigating the right parenting time arrangement, but you're not litigating some things that you two agree on. And I think that that is a good thing, as opposed to figuring out, well, what's better for me?
Yeah.
Because that's the question when you get divorced. What's best for me? Not what's fair for us. But when you're doing a prenup or postnup, the question is, what's fair and best for us?
Yes. Absolutely. I think that so much, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be saying this so publicly because it'll eliminate a lot of my billable hours, but if everyone had a prenup or a postnup, divorce would be so much easier because there's just less on the table. You've already figured out what your potential issues are. What are your sticking points? What are your fundamental, values and what are yours? And what do you think is fair moving forward?
Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was great. I always love, love, love talking to you. And I should say before we get off, we measure every single attorney's client's satisfaction because it's important for me as a business owner. Like, customer service is really important. And we have quite a few lawyers. Rachel's is always the highest. Like, how is it that you do that?
I think it comes down to communicating with your client and understanding what are your goals? How can I help you get there? And then also taking the time to educate them on here's how I can get you there, or here's why I cannot get you there. And that's how I like to start every one of my clients off is with a meeting, really just going over those things. So I think that's what's really important. Maybe it's my shining personality. Maybe I pay him under the table. We don't know. I'm just kidding.
It is a superpower, and it's something that I really value, and it's something that clients really value. So they should know that about you. Definitely want to get that in. But anyway, thank you so much for your time today, and we will have you back on again soon.
Did you enjoy the discussion? If you loved getting to know the team member we highlighted, why not take the next step? Feel free to book a meeting with them using the link in the description box below. We'd love to connect with you.